Welcome into the Awesemo MMA strategy shows. We're here to get you ready for Saturday's UFC 272, headlined by former friends, now bitter rivals, Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. Let's just say they're not the only rivals on this card that don't like each other. We'll get into Maria Moroz and Maria Agapova later on in the show. Of course, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. Talk about Prize Picks later on the show, as I was on Prize Picks a little earlier today, and there were definitely some props that I saw on Prize Picks that definitely stuck out to me. Of course, if you got any questions or comments on the fights, leave those in the chat. We will discuss all these here over the next hour. Of course, as always, I'm joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, this is basically well, I'll sum up this slate this week. This is a great to be 120 maxing, 150 maxing, because there's a lot of fights on here that, man, I can see them going both ways.
For sure, for sure. What's up, everybody? We have an excellent card from a viewing aspect, right? From a betting and DFS perspective, I feel like it's a very difficult card to nail. I feel like there are some volatile matchups that we will discuss. You have some intriguing, fighters on the card that have some tremendous upside, and some sneaky spots that we'll have to target and get into. But I agree with you. I think this is a 150 max all day long, and I'll be relying on my tools over at Awesemo.com, using a fantasy cruncher tool, and in combination with the ownership top fighters tool, all that good stuff will definitely help my lineups a lot more this week, because I feel like it's going to be a very difficult week.
No question. It is definitely going to be a very difficult week. I will tell you, in my I've got a cash core. I have my two fighters in the cash core this week, and I'll tell you that one of them is going to be Jorge Masvidal. Now, my cash game theory process is much different than my GPP game theory process. I'm taking very much of an approach like I took last week in cash, of I'm just going to lock in Bobby Green, and then I'm going to fill 5 other guys that I feel very confident in. And if I hit those 5, I'm going to cash. And that's exactly what happened last week. So that's kind of my game theory in that. And of course, I mean, look, co-main event is going to be hard. It's going to be hard to avoid that fight because of the pricing. Of course, RDA's price is already set. We was going to take on Rafael Fiziev. Now he takes on Renato Moicano, 7,300 on DK, 7,200 for Moicano. Of course, we don't have FanDuel prices, so the FanDuel game theory is going to be much different this week, because of obviously you're going to get a more accurate price there on RDA. But Pete, let's get right into this main event: Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. 9,400 for Colby Covington, 6,800 for Jorge Masvidal. Of course, we do not have pricing over on FanDuel as we do this show. And look, I mean, this is the thing, and I know you had a tweet about maybe thinking that maybe the MMA culture, MMA community is down on Jorge Masvidal, and I think we're probably gonna have a good conversation here in terms of this fight. Look, we both know who the best fighter is in this fight, and it is Colby Covington. If there was a world where Kamaru Usman did not exist, Colby Covington is the UFC welterweight champion. Why are you laughing over there?
I'm just letting you go. Go ahead. Keep going.
No. Seriously, you do not think Colby Covington is the second best welterweight in the world?
I mean, that's because we have some people that are that are coming up. I mean, Khamzat Chimaev is going to be atop of that list, like very, very shortly. But from what we've seen, I'm telling you right now, like, I get it. Colby Covington is everybody's, DFS darling. He goes out there and he just is a fantasy points god. Like, he gets takedowns, his pace, he weaponizes his cardio, which is something you'll hear a lot of, UFC commentators and analysts break down all week leading up to the fight, saying that he weaponizes his cardio and weaponizes his pace. And that can be the difference maker, and he can break a ton of opponents. And going up against a guy in Jorge Masvidal, who historically has struggled in the takedown defense department, I totally get it. But, a lot of their early experience with each other is when Masvidal was fighting at 155 pounds. They haven't trained with each other in X amount of years, 2 or 3 years, I believe. And since then, Masvidal has had some of his best success at 170 pounds. Now, I understand why Colby's the favorite, and I think rightfully so. He is the better and more well-rounded fighter in this fight for sure. I think the meaner fighter of the two is definitely Jorge Masvidal. And depending on how the fight goes, if he's able to defend some takedowns and just really butcher Colby Covington in some aspects, like, he's going to be looking to really punish him at any given moment. So I agree with the fact that, Colby Covington has a nice salary of 9,400, given his upside. I just think like 3-1 and possibly approaching 4-1 is just a little bit rich. Like, I mean, everybody's just thinking that Colby Covington goes out there and it's automatic. They still have to fight. And I think that Masvidal is just kind of getting glossed over slightly. I feel like he's just slightly underappreciated. And, if he's able to keep this on the feet, and all the training partners that, helped him prepare for this, Bo Nickel, Mateusz Gamrot, even Danny Sabatello, who's a lighter guy, but they can all, mimic the pace and pressure of Colby Covington at American Top Team. I think this is a different fight if it stays standing. So I don't know. I'm just saying that the odds are a little too wide. I do agree that Covington's the A side for sure, but I'll be getting a little bit more of Masvidal than probably the field.
I'm still kind of going back. Do you not think Colby Covington's the second best welterweight in the world right now?
No, I don't.
Who would you consider number two?
I think Khamzat Chimaev. I'm telling you right now.
He doesn't have the resume right now. He doesn't.
That's true.
Okay, he may have the talent. Like Kayla Harrison may have the talent to say that she's the best female fighter in the world. But who have you beaten to prove you're that? Like, if you look at the top 10 in the UFC welterweight rankings, how many of them would you pick to beat Colby Covington? And I said this on my show this week, and I know there's a comment about, Colby talks too much. People, when they think of Colby Covington, they think about Colby Covington, the character. They don't think about Colby Covington, the martial artist. This guy's an elite fighter. But I mean, look, if Jorge Masvidal is going to pull this off, to me, it's him knocking out Colby Covington within the first 10 minutes. If you tell me this fight gets to the third round, it is Colby Covington all day. I'll say this right now. I think if you're looking to bet this fight, this is a live betting scenario all the way, where potentially Jorge Masvidal gets off to a decent start. He stops takedowns. The thing is he may stop 3 or 4 takedowns in the first and second round, but the problem is, those chain takedowns are going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. I worry about the cardio of Jorge Masvidal as this fight goes on. And like I said, the reason I like Jorge Masvidal in cash is just because he's going to allow me to get to so many fighters that I want to get to, because I do think that this fight's going to get to the third round. I don't know if this is a fight in terms of GPPs that you have to prioritize, because at Colby Covington's price, how that's going to affect the rest of your roster. Now, look, and there was another comment said that, maybe the emotions get the best of Colby Covington. If you're a Colby Covington backer, your hope has just got to be he doesn't go in there with the mindset of, I want to show the whole world that I can go toe-to-toe with Jorge Masvidal, that he goes in there with a smart game plan and says, you know what, I'm going to show I'm the better martial artist. Yeah,
I mean, if Colby decides to stand up longer than expected or longer than he really should, I think this is where we could see, the body shots accumulating. Jorge really digs to the body better than most MMA strikers out there. And, I think that, Masvidal can defend some takedowns. And traditionally he's defended some. I think that American Top Team and Jorge have been pretty smart with when they were going to accept this bout against Colby Covington. And I feel like he might perform a little bit better in the takedown defense department than some people are giving him credit. But I do still side with Colby Covington as far as DFS. It's amazing. And I'll be rooting like crazy for Jorge Masvidal just because I don't like Colby Covington. I totally respect his skill. He is absolutely tremendous. He's pretty hittable on the feet. And he kind of like zombies through a lot of striking exchanges, which I think could lead to getting hit by a big combination or shot. I'm interested. I think this is a close fight, but I do think that Colby Covington probably edges him throughout, but I'll be rooting for Masvidal.
I would tell you a prop bet, Colby Covington wins via stoppage round 5.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I totally think that there's value on just like prop bet and Masvidal, because if he wins, that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah, but I'll just tell you this. I mean, look, I'm still amazed. Are we buying you a Khamzat Chimaev fight kit? I mean,
Khamzat Chimaev is going to beat Kamaru Usman, and Khamzat Chimaev might be the next biggest thing. And I've been saying it for a long time. I'm telling you right now, he is the next big guy, the next big superstar. It's like, we saw Tyron Woodley be a dominant champion for a very long time. Then Kamaru Usman came along. Khamzat Chimaev is the next guy.
He's got to beat somebody in the top 10.
Bro, and if anybody accept the fight, watch what he does to Gilbert Burns in a couple weeks.
Or Gilbert Burns, show there's a little levels when you get to this top level. I mean, look, I think Khamzat Chimaev is a great fighter. I'm with you. the ceiling is there. I got to see him do it against someone in the top 10.
Okay, we will.
Remember, 2 UFC wins. John Phillips, we both know, can't stop a takedown. And Reese McKee.
Okay. I could go on for 25 minutes. This is my guy. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, man. I can't wait till that next pay-per-view. Oh, God. Good Lord. They must have just priced Khamzat Chimaev like 10,000. You'll still roster him.
He's probably underpriced.
Of course, this is the Awesemo MMA strategy show. Get you ready for UFC 272. If you like the little banter me and Peter having, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, because of course, after us is the NHL strategy show. Of course, if you're not a member of Awesemo Plus, you will get a peek behind what's behind the paywall. Today's free premium data and tools are NBA player projections and NHL player projections. Also, we have our podcast giveaway. Go over to that Awesemo MMA podcast channel. Leave us a 5-star rating and review with your Twitter handle or your Awesemo username. You enter to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So be sure to check out that. By the way, if you are a Awesemo Plus member, the projections have been updated for DraftKings over on the site. So be sure to check out those. Of course, I already did a dummy crunch. And let's just say it was giving me a lot of Rafael dos Anjos, who is 7,300, taking on Renato Moicano, 7,200. Big thing with this one, this is a 5-round fight. Initially, Dos Anjos versus Fiziev, which was going to headline a fight night card 2 or 3 weeks ago. That was a 5-round matchup. And Renato Moicano steps up. Islam Makhachev, it sounded like they thought they had a done deal, and ultimately the deal did not come to play. So, unfortunately for Islam Makhachev, he now has to take another fight before a title matchup, as Dana White came out and said that one. But, look, this is in terms of GPPs and particularly in cash, this is going to be a hard fight to avoid. I will say this. I think if you want to get different, say if you're going to go in a single bullet into one of these big GPPs and you truly want to try to separate yourself from the field, not having one of these guys in your lineup, I think is going to help you separate yourself from the field. I think the ownership is going to be crazy, especially on the RDA side of this one. But Pete, I know before the show you were I feel like Khamzat Chimaev's in the co-main event the way you're talking about RDA.
All I have to say is that this is going to be a very tough fight to avoid, and I'm just going to basically relay exactly what you just said. And if you want to get different, you could avoid this fight, but I don't recommend doing so. I just feel like this is a free square of the week. We're always looking for an underdog under 8,000 that can come through for us. Not only that, we have an underdog, priced as an underdog, Rafael dos Anjos at 7,300 in a 5-round bout. And I just think that's extremely interesting because that's fantasy points galore right there. And this is a guy who's had a full training camp. Renato Moicano coming off a relatively quick win. And he looked pretty good. He looked okay. I don't think that he represents a stylistic nightmare for Rafael dos Anjos, where in some other fights, Renato Moicano can really navigate and cause problems for certain people. He can get takedowns, which has always been Rafael dos Anjos is kryptonite, is getting controlled and out wrestled. But I don't view Renato Moicano as an American wrestler. And he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner who has good submission ability. But guess what? Rafael dos Anjos does as well. And Rafael dos Anjos is accustomed to fighting at 155 pounds and north of that at 170 pounds. So this is my free square of the week. And it's not even really my free square. It's everybody's free square. 7,300 Rafael dos Anjos. I just think that he's the A side here. I can see him getting rid of Renato Moicano. I'd be pretty surprised if Moicano lasts 5 rounds. I just think that the durability isn't really there for Moicano. The cardio is not there. And I don't know. I just think that Moicano will be dangerous early, and Rafael dos Anjos will have answers for it. So 7,300. I'm not going to get too cute. He's going to be my guy, probably might even be all my lineups, to be honest. I just feel pretty confident that he's going to get the job done.
Yeah, so you're talking about Renato Moicano takes this fight on Monday, gets on a plane on Tuesday from Brazil. So he's not even been at an American top team. So he's his management came out and said he's weighing 180 pounds. So he's going to have to cut 20 pounds from Tuesday to Friday morning there in Las Vegas. Something to pay attention to there. There's another fighter on this card that came out and talked about how much weight he's got to cut, which is even more than what Renato Moicano is going to have to cut. We'll talk about that fighter here in a little bit. But look, I'm with you. If you tell me this fight hits the 4th, 5th round, yeah, to me, it's RDA all the way in this one. And this is potentially, you could go with a game theory of, okay, I want to be less on the field in this fight. But if you tell me this fight hits the 4th, 5th round, Pete, I don't know how RDA is not potentially the smash spot of this slate.
Yeah, 100%. And let's kind of like put this into perspective, right? We always talk about getting different from the field, and trying to get different would be avoiding this fight because both fighters are priced in the 7,000s of a 5-round fight. Now, say, RDA comes in 65% owned or something like that, or call it 70% owned. That means that, 30% of the field went elsewhere. I feel like to even be a little bit more aggressive than that, like that means that 30% of people's lineups may not have the most no-brainer spot on the entire slate. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's okay to get different, but it's, don't get too cute at the same time.
I don't know how you avoid RDA in cash.
Yeah, I know. In cash, it's a no-brainer.
Like to me, and look, as much as I like Colby Covington to win the main event, a core for me will be Masvidal and Dos Anjos in cash. At that point, I can just go get anybody I want.
Right, exactly.
So that's something you always got to think about here. Of course, if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, you got to take advantage of everything we have over Awesemo.com. Sign up for a Awesemo Plus weekly pass. Get that for $29.95. Gives you access to everything we have over at Awesemo.com. Ownership projections, player projections, so much more. Of course, if you just want an MMA weekly pass, those start as low as $2.95, or take advantage of that monthly pass we have over there for Awesemo Plus MMA. Add Fantasy Cruncher to your account. That is going to help you out so much. A lot of times, even when I'm hand building lineups, I'm just seeing what Cruncher is going to give me. So it kind of gives me an idea when I'm hand building, because for my cash lineups, I'm hand building all of my cash lineups. So be sure to check out that. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Let's move on to the next matchup. Edson Barboza taking on Bryce Mitchell. 7,900 for Edson Barboza, 8,300 for Bryce Mitchell. I mean, Pete, this is classic MMA style matchup. We got the striker, we got the grappler, and for me, breaking this one down is not difficult at all, Pete. Like, if Bryce Mitchell, he has got to be pushing the pace and in Edson Barboza's face the entire fight, trying to get this fight to the ground, stay out of kicking range. If he stays in kicking range, I think Bryce Mitchell's in trouble.
Yeah, so this is a classic grappler against striker, as you mentioned, and Bryce Mitchell has to be on his P's and Q's, and it's like he needs to just close the gap immediately. If you start dancing around, that's when Barboza can get into his rhythm. He can start leg kicking you like crazy, dropping those tremendous leg kicks, can brutalize anybody's lead leg, which will take away from the burst and explosiveness required for some takedowns. Now, I just see Bryce Mitchell's last performance as like a career breakthrough for him, because there's always been questions about Bryce Mitchell's ability to take the fight to the mat against some talented fighters. But Andre Fili's no slouch, man. Like, really, Andre Fili is a pretty, really, he's a talented striker, but also has some sneaky wrestling and comes from a strong camp. And when I saw what, Bryce Mitchell was able to do to him and land 7 takedowns, I mean, 7 of 13, and have over 10 minutes of control time, that's exceptional against a guy who does have a wrestling background. Now you have, Edson Barboza as a guy that historically struggles against this same exact blueprint that Bryce Mitchell is. And yeah, throughout his career, he's faced 20 Bryce Mitchells, but how many of those, Bryce Mitchells has he had success against? And some of it's against, top end competition, but sometimes styles make fights. And I'll tell you what, Bryce Mitchell is a nightmare of a matchup for Edson Barboza the second he closes the gap, because he's heavy on top. He has a sneaky submission game, so it's not like he's just going to wet blanket people. And I think that he could even incorporate some ground and pound or just some repetitive takedowns. Barboza works his way back up because he's talented and has 32 professional fights, and he just gets taken right back down. I hate to be against Edson Barboza, but he's a liability in the cardio department as well. Mm-hmm. And I don't blame people for looking at him and saying, man, if this stays on the feet at 7,900, you're talking about one of the best underdogs on the slate. And I would agree, but from what I've seen historically, I have to back Bryce Mitchell, honestly, at 8,300. I think that he's priced appropriately. I thought that he was going to come in a little bit, higher on the salary department, but Bryce Mitchell, 8,300 might be. I'll have to pay attention to ownership, and obviously I want to see how these weigh-ins go, but I think that there's tremendous upside at his price point given the takedown and control time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing, the question I have with Bryce Mitchell is, this is a notable step up in competition from what he's faced in the UFC, starting all with Tyler Diamond, then it's Bobby Moffett, Matt Sales, Charles Rosa. Andre Feely. To me, it's at, and ultimately the question is like, if he sits back and does not push the pace, that's to me where I think he's going to get in trouble here. This is one of those fights, and I think we can talk about this for so many fights in this car where it's like, man, I want to get to both sides of it, because you see the path for both sides of how they will be optimal. I mean, the only question you have is, if this is a Edson Barboza win, can Bryce Mitchell survive for 15 minutes? And maybe there's just not enough points scored by Barboza if he doesn't score knockdowns.
Yeah, I mean, we got Josh, Matt, Dave, everybody in chat saying about, how Bryce Mitchell's striking's awful, and it is. But a lot of times you don't really need much, because your opponent's going to be respecting the takedown threat so much. And Bryce Mitchell's, striking is completely elementary. I just think from everything that I've seen, he needs to close the gap immediately, and he needs to do it quick and just not allow Barboza to get into a rhythm, because if Barboza does survive, as you mentioned, does not get a stoppage, does he really even come through? Probably not. I think that it's for DFS at 8,300. I like Bryce Mitchell. I really do. He needs to really work his striking craft and just improve upon that. But I think that the kid's young and he's getting better, and we've seen Barboza struggle in this situation. So it's Bryce Mitchell for me at 8,300.
I will say this. I watched episode 1 and 2 of Embedded. I was pretty surprised to see how much they profiled Bryce Mitchell, especially after his interview with Ariel Helwani 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
I was surprised as well.
It seems like they're trying to sell a different version of Bryce Mitchell, let's just say.
Well, it's like he's an idiot, but he's marketable in a certain aspect. Like I thought the Embeddeds were cool. He's an interesting character. He's like Tyler, like he's chilling. He's enjoying the country life or just like the off the grid life a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. And he just, the interview was just a poor take on his end, and hopefully he learns from it.
By the way, Dave brings up your chair. If we fix the chair yet or what?
No fixing of the chair. We got to bink first. So hopefully, hopefully I'll bink this weekend, and then I'll get myself a new chair. I don't even know if I need to get a new chair, but with everybody constantly bringing it up, I feel like I might have to.
Yeah, maybe just, I mean, got all that big Connecticut money, I know you're just, hanging on those, with sports betting being legal up there. I get you. Yeah. But let's move on to the next matchup, welterweight matchup, Kevin Holland versus Alex Oliveira. 9,100 for Kevin Holland, 7,100 for Cowboy Oliveira. This is one of those fights, like, God, I just feel like this has got optimal written all over it.
For sure. I'm glad you mentioned it. And I think naturally everybody's going to lean towards Kevin Holland, and rightfully so. I like Kevin Holland, right? Coming from a higher weight class, formerly being a middleweight, bouncing around throughout his career, and now coming down to welterweight, where I think he might have a little bit more success going up against a guy in Alex Oliveira who's battle tested and has been in numerous wars throughout his career. Alex Oliveira takes tons of shots and gets hit a lot on the feet. Pushes the pace for as long as he can, and then has like a cardio collapse throughout his fights. And we've seen him quit multiple times. I mean, you can look at the Randy Brown fight, not even a fully sunken rear naked choke, one arm. It still can work, but at that level, usually you want to see people, display a little better fight within a situation like that. And I think this could be a situation where Kevin Holland kind of gets back on the winning side of things. I mean, he's had a rough patch in his career, lost to Derek Brunson, lost to Marvin Vettori, and obviously we know how that fight with Kyle Daukaus, how that ended up playing out. But I do think that Kevin Holland is, really working on what he needs to work on, and his take down the fence to really just let his striking, just dictate how the fight's going to go. And I think this is a sneaky spot for either one of these guys, to be honest, because everybody in the world is probably going to be on Kevin Holland, and not too many people are going to want to take shots at Alex Oliveira. And I'm still siding with Kevin Holland. I think that he should be able to put away Cowboy Oliveira, whether it's via strikes or submission, kind of like a club and sub type of situation. But there is upside just given Kevin Holland's knack for not defending takedowns throughout history. I mean, you can even go back and think about the Darren Stewart fight, where a lot of people didn't even think that Kevin Holland won that fight. And Cowboy Oliveira kind of possesses a more skilled Darren Stewart type of stylistic clash. So this might be a GPP group for me, to be honest, but I'm siding with Kevin Holland. He should be able to get the job done if he's who we think he is.
5-inch reach advantage for Kevin Holland is also something to note there, what he has in this one. And, this does kind of feel like a spot the UFC is trying to put Kevin Holland in. While at the relationship with Kevin Holland, the UFC may not have gone to the best of start, as of course Dana White and notoriously calling him Big Mouth, is definitely a guy that they do love. Now, I mentioned about a fighter that has to drop a ton of weight this week, and he's the one who put it out there. Greg Hardy, 7,500 taking on Sergey Spivak, 8,700. He's got to drop 30 pounds this week to make weight.
So, I mean, 30 pounds is 30 pounds, but 30 pounds for a heavyweight is not like 30 pounds for a lightweight. It's still a tremendous amount of weight for somebody to cut within, a week's time. It really is. I'd say that the 20 to 15 pounds is mostly what most fighters are cutting within the past week and a half of a fight camp. And it just goes to show you, maybe Greg Hardy just doesn't put the work in as he should. I mean, he is an athlete and a pretty talented athlete. The fact that he's green in this sport, he found early success, and now he's starting to get exposed in certain matchups. And I'm interested in this fight just because I do think that there is some volatility on both sides. Spivak has shown that he can get taken out of there by getting hit with a big shot, but his go-to is his exceptional grappling for the division. And I don't think that he's all that bad. Like, I think people kind of overreact a little bit when somebody gets knocked out, especially against a prospect, Tom Aspinall. Obviously the debut loss to Walt Harris is something that people can kind of, poke fun at nowadays. But at the time, Walt Harris is, he's a dangerous finisher. And Greg Hardy's a guy that definitely should be a part of your underdog pool at 7,500, just given the fact that he has had success in some of his losses too. Like the Tuivasa fight, the Marcin Tybura fight was having success until he wasn't. And that's the issue with him. Cardio liability for sure. Spivak has an exceptional grappling edge over him here. He just needs to avoid the big shot, and possibly, with the work at Extreme Couture and getting some rounds in and some working with Francis Ngannou and all those other fantastic fighters at Extreme Couture for this camp, it might be the way to go. And I think that this could be a situation where he could be getting overlooked just because we're dying to find some underdogs on the slate that could come through. So I'm still picking Spivak. I think he's the better fighter, but like we always say, the better fighter doesn't always win, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. Like you said, Greg Hardy's got to be in your underdog pool here. It is a final UFC fight on his contract for Greg Hardy. He's kind of talked about maybe going to boxing. We'll see what happens there. But I think if you're Sergey Spivak, it's about limiting, the chance in this fight. That's why I think you maybe see Sergey Spivak attempt to get this fight to the ground to really test the ground game of Greg Hardy. But man, Greg Hardy's got lightning in those hands, man. If he catches you, and we've seen it happen, even in fights he's lost. You think about the Tuivasa fight. He caught Tuivasa early on in that fight. Tuivasa is just one tough dude who could take that punishment.
For sure. And like Scott Mariani in chat, and it's a great point saying that, Greg Hardy is a defensive end. He should be good at tackling ground fighting. And that's where certain coaches would probably mold him into being a top heavy guy, where utilizing that great top pressure en route to vicious ground and pound. It's just sometimes fighters are stubborn and they fall in love with their hands. They start knocking people out and they forget like where they could have some physical advantages. And that's where if a talented football player came to me and, wanted to start working on stuff, like I'd be like, all right, man, on top position, you'd actually be pretty dangerous. So let's work that. But Greg Hardy has fallen in love with his hands. Definitely can knock Spivak out. It's a fight that I will have plenty of exposure to, but I have to lean with the better mixed martial artist in Sergey Spivak.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one as well. Move on to the next matchup. We got a matchup between Jalen Turner and Jamie Mullarkey. Jalen Turner, 8,200, 8,000 for Jamie Mullarkey. Pete, what you take?
I like this fight just from a fan perspective because I'm actually a fan of both, and I've cashed from both of these guys where they have been overlooked and underestimated throughout their UFC career. And I do think the guy in Jalen Turner are, a fighter that I've heard a lot of great things. Michael Bisping especially has talked about him, and Luke Rockhold even saying how he was a tremendous partner for helping them prepare for certain fights and tall, long strikers. So Jalen Turner, for me, just looks like a mammoth for this division at 8,200. Now, a tricky situation is where if his opponents are able to get on the inside and take him to take down City, you kind of neutralize that dangerous offense of Jalen Turner of good striking and, even some sneaky submissions. I think that this is going to be a dogfight. And this is one where the pricing is absolutely appropriate. It's essentially a pick 'em 8,200, 8,000. I'm going to lean with Jalen Turner, but what we've seen from Malarkey is that his aggressiveness is exceptional. His takedowns are sneaky, and he has very, very good defensive striking where he can move his head. His hands are in the correct place. And this looks like a guy who is starting to come into his own early, throughout his career. He has suffered some finishes and some defeats, but so has Jalen Turner. They're both pretty battle tested, and it just goes to show you how deep the divisions are within the UFC. This is a very, very close fight, but I'm going to lean towards Jalen Turner. I want to see how both of these guys take some shots. This could be a live betting situation, but it's a slight lean to Jalen Turner, and just sit back and enjoy this fight. It's going to be an excellent one.
You talk about who could potentially go the takedown City route. Jamie Malarkey to me is that guy.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just like we've seen it happen to Jalen Turner, and he knows that he needs to work on it. And from everything I've seen on social media, he has been. It doesn't mean that the hole is patched yet. It's like a work in progress. So totally viable. Jamie Malarkey, 8,000. Pound for pound, strong value.
Of course, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. You got to check out over there at prizepicks.com and get one free month of also plus platinum when you sign up, deposit, and play over at Prize Picks. Of course, be sure to use that promo code Awesemo as they got an instant first match deposit of up to $100. Of course, whether you're playing MMA or other sports out there, like say you're going to place an NBA over there, be sure to use our props to help you decide which ones that you want to play. And of course, when you do sign up and get that one free month of also plus platinum, you will receive an email within 24 to 48 hours to redeem your free month of also plus platinum. And Pete, there was fight times that really stuck out to me.
All right.
RDA 22.5. Give me the under.
Yeah, that's an under. I might. Oh man, that's a big under. Like, hit that as soon as this show's over.
Hit it right now. You can just go play over there right now and hit that one. Also, I like the under on Sergey Spivak 7.5 minutes.
That's a weird one. I'd much rather Rafael dos Anjos, but I understand just the volatility of that heavyweight matchup.
The takedown side of the equation, Colby Covington, 4.5 takedowns.
Well, depending on
under.
Hold on, you're saying under? You don't think he's?
I think Colby. I think early on this fight, Colby will a lot of feinting with takedowns. I think he's going to try to keep it on the feet. Takedowns come later on the fight. Look, if you go over, he's got to get 5 takedowns. I like the under. Okay. Now, if it was 3.5, then that number becomes a little more interesting.
Yeah, my 3.5, I think it's just completely smash.
Takedowns on RDA is 1.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah, I'm telling you what. I'm just saying. You got to play Prize Picks on Thursday. Get these locked in when you can, because I'm gonna tell you this right now. If you wait till Saturday, that RDA fight time at 22.5 ain't going to be there. It's not going to be there.
I agree with you. And Tyler brought up a good point. Bryce Mitchell, 2.5 takedowns. That's over. That's over. I'm saying over on that.
I would agree with you on that one too. There's a lot of juicy prop bets over there at Prize Picks. You got to check that out. You can see it there right on the screen. And be sure to use that promo code Awesemo, instant first match deposit of up to $100. Of course, we appreciate them being a sponsor here of the Also MMA Strategy Show. Of course, myself and Pete will be here on Saturday for Live Before Lock, 4 p.m. Eastern time to get you ready for UFC 272 lead into NBA Deeper Dive. Let's move up next one. Probably one of the fights that I'm probably the most interested to see how it plays out. I do think this is going to be a striking matchup between Marina Rodriguez and Yan Xiaonan. 9,300 for Marina Rodriguez, 6,900 for Yan Xiaonan. Man, I like Marina Rodriguez to win the fight, Pete. I just don't know if she can be optimal at that price point.
Yeah, so I agree with you. 9,300, you'd like to think that she needs a finish, and I don't think that Yan Xiaonan is a bad fighter by any means. Recency bias may make her seem like she's a poor fighter because she got TKO'd in the second round to Carla Esparza, but that was more of a situational mistake where, just this fight's going to be a stand-up fight. She's not going to really have to worry about getting put on her back, crucifixed, elbowed into oblivion, or anything of that sort. So I think even from a cash perspective, right? So for Jason, for even like something for you, if you really don't think that Jorge Masvidal is going to score, let's call it 40 or more points in a loss, you could be looking at a fighter in Yan Jianan in a high volume striking affair with tons of significant strikes and total strikes, that at 6,900, you just have to find a little bit more money. She could actually come through and be a lot of people's darling, because I do foresee this going 15 minutes. I foresee Marina Rodriguez having the power advantage in this situation. Yan will probably have the speed advantage, and she's put together some excellent combinations. But if you really look at it, Marina Rodriguez has fought a little stiffer competition, where Yan Jianan has fought, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Claudia Gadelha, two fighters that really aren't, a part of the sport as strong as they used to be. The Angela Hill one makes sense. The Kondo, I mean, I can kind of poke holes in some situations in some of their fights, but I do favor Marina Rodriguez. I thought that what she did in the Mackenzie Dern, the Michelle Waterson, the Amanda Hebos fight, like she's showing some improvements, and she's looking like a very dangerous fighter as long as the fight stays on the feet. Her Achilles heel is getting taken down, and I don't really foresee Yan Jianan exploiting something like that. This could be a close fight, just where the 9,300 Marina Rodriguez doesn't necessarily, make it into the optimal lineup, just given, how the lack of a finish and some other finishes, going into that optimal lineup.
And look, if you do think Marina Rodriguez can get the finish, it could be that high-end leverage play of the week. Something to think about. By the way, you mentioned about maybe you put in Yan Jianan instead of Jorge Masvidal in that cash lineup, and let's just say you start off, your core is Yan Jianan, RDA. That means your average remaining per player for your final four spots, 89.50.
That's what I mean. So, and I do think that there's probably, if you're going just from the odds, and just how in women's MMA some fights are a lot closer than how they usually are, Yan Jianan probably gives you a little bit more upside than Jorge Masvidal in a loss. So I'm excited regardless, and I think that I'll have some exposure to Yan Jianan, because I feel like I did not anticipate this salary and there to be such a wide gap between the two. I thought Rodriguez would be favored, but to this point, it just seems like it's like a little too rich.
Next up, we got a light heavyweight matchup. Kenny Njoku, 8,400, taking on Nikolai, who is 7,800. And I mean, look, when you look at Kenny, I mean, the first thing you think about, even before you think about how he fights, is just this massive reach that he has at 205 pounds, 83 inches. He's got a 5-inch reach advantage in this one.
Yeah,
but like, man, I'm down on this guy. Like, when he came in the UFC, Pete, I was like, man, this guy, he's got the body frame, trains at a good gym and at Fortis MMA, but God, he scares me.
What happens a lot, and it happens when I'm looking at tape a lot, it's like, what do the matchmakers see in this guy that I'm not really seeing in fight film? And then I start realizing that it's probably, they're associated with a strong camp. And it's a guy that, may just be a talented striking or training partner for some people. And, you're just not really seeing the skills translate into the cage. And I think that Kenny Njoku can give problems to multiple people, right? He's 6'5", 83-inch reach. Nicolay Negumereanu is 6 feet tall, 78-inch reach. So just the way that Kennedy strikes, long striker, he can give a ton of people problems based on his frame alone. But I am worried about him coming off of a knockout defeat to Jung. And I think that a guy in Negumereanu is a guy that's somewhat catching us by surprise, because whenever you lose a fight to Safarov, when you're controlled or taken down, people are going to automatically be against you and be low on you going forward. But I view this where, we haven't really talked about too many underdogs that are just straight up underdogs that I feel decently confident in. And Negumereanu hits pretty hard. You saw that in his previous fight against Ike Villanueva. And he does have some takedown upside as well. I don't think that Alexa Kamer's a terrible fighter by any means, and was brought into the UFC to actually be like a young guy to develop within the division. And Nego Mariano squeak out that decision and scored 78 fantasy points. So I think that Nego Mariano is a side that I'd rather get to than Kenny Nzechukwu, just given how Kennedy's last fight went. And 7,800, I'll be going with Nego Mariano.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that you talk about the underdog pool. Nikolai's got to be in the underdog pool for you. Let's move on to the next matchup. And you want to talk about two ladies who, man, I feel like they might have a fight in the cage. They might also have a fight in the street. That's Marina Moroz, Maria Agapova. Look, if you're not aware of the backstory, just Google Maria Moroz, Maria Agapova, and you're going to see some of the things that Maria Moroz has said in this one. The thing about Agapova is I can't get that Dobson loss out of my head.
Yep.
Look,
loss, bro.
There's going to be fighters that will always mention that bad loss had and on their record, and that's going to be the one where she just, the gas tank just wasn't there. Like, she's definitely Shayna Dobson, but that's a fight I can't erase from my memory.
Yeah, you're not defined by your losses, but some losses age well, and some losses just look horrible in hindsight. And Agapova going into that fight, I think she was a 10-1 favorite or something silly. It's crazy to see because, Agapova, everybody was low on her. And I feel like I was as well. I did not expect the performance against Sabina Maza. I don't think I did. And she came back and bounced back from that embarrassing defeat to Dobson and scored a third round submission win, scoring 94 points and priced at 8,800 in a close fight with a hole in her game. And that's her takedown defense. And this should be relatively even on the feet. And Marina Moroz is pretty sharp in the boxing department. And just of late, she's been targeting takedowns a little bit more. If you look at her box scores, she landed 2 takedowns against Bueno Silva, 1 against Sabina Mazo, but she's attempting a lot more. And that could be the difference maker here, because I don't think that Agapova's the more well-rounded fighter. I think that Agapova might be the more aggressive fighter. So depending on how this fight unfolds, I foresee this being competitive and close. And I actually think that I'm going to be siding with the underdog here, Marina Moroz. I thought that the salaries would be a little bit closer. 8,800 to 7,400 just seems a little too wide. I think there's value to be had on the Moroz side, but question marks surrounding both of them. Moroz could easily lose a decision here. I think that, Agapova is going to want to keep this fight on the feet, obviously. But I think that Moroz mixing it up a little bit better and being a part of, the true American top team could be the difference maker here at 7,400. So I'm going to back her.
And of course, they were former training partners there at ATT. You mentioned about that fight against Dobson. She opened up as a 7-1 favorite, and she closed as high as a 16-1 favorite.
Yeah, exactly. It was ridiculous. I remember I lost money on that, and I think the whole world did.
The whole world did.
Yeah, but this is not a situation where I'll uncheck either fighter. Like, I'm going to have exposure to Agapova. I'm going to have exposure to Marina Moroz. It's women's MMA. It's volatile. And then when you start to bring in all the emotions, that's when mistakes can happen. And that's what I'm worried about in the main event as well. When you bring emotions into the table and into the fight, that's where mistakes can happen, and you can, get away from the game plan. And that's where you need to have exposure on both sides. So I'd much rather be more confident in some other picks and kind of be a little split on this one.
Sam, I appreciate you in the super chat there. We'll get to your questions at the end of the show. I mentioned about that cash core for me. Maybe it's, Jorge / Yanjanan pair with Rafael dos Anjos. When doing that, that's going to allow you to get to Nurmagomedov. Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Brian Kelleher here. A massive betting favorite in this one, a 6.5-1 betting favorite. He is 9,600 over on DraftKings, 6,600 for Brian Kelleher. This is a tough spot for Brian Kelleher.
Yes, it is. I love Umar Nurmagomedov. I absolutely love him. I love his striking. And the reason I love his striking is because he has extreme dexterity in his legs. He whips the kicks up with such ease. And a lot of people don't understand how hard it is to kick like that. In addition to the exceptional striking, he's well-rounded. Like, he has great takedowns. He has solid submission skills. So at 9,600, you're paying top dollar. But with how many fights are on the table and how many underdogs can possibly come through on a week like this, because I think the dogs are barking, and I think that there could be multiple underdogs making it into the optimal lineup. So I'm going to take a firm stance on Nurmagomedov. It's just a matter of, does he pay off the price tag in relation to the rest of the slate? That's something that, you have to be a little bullish on certain fighters and saying, all right, well, do you want a safe win, or do you want just to really only target upside? And I think that Umar Nurmagomedov is a safe win, but this is a step up in competition. If we're being honest, Brian Kelleher is an extremely talented fighter, has power in both of his hands, has solid wrestling. I just think that Umar is going to make him look like he doesn't belong in the cage with him. And if that happens, an early first round or second round finish is completely possible, or 15-minute domination. So give me Nurmagomedov. I want to see what the ownership is, Jason, because I'll tell you what, if say he comes in 40% owned, that means 60% of the field is avoiding one of the biggest and most talented fighters on this entire card. So I'm probably going to be much more aggressive in the field.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're going there, and Umar will be someone that I'm definitely trying to get to. And look, as I always say, is you got to look at those ownership projections that help you kind of develop your lineups there. Of course, after the fight's over, one thing that Pete and I love to see is those winning screenshots. And we want to see you get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame this week. Of course, all you got to do is you rock that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. When you place in the top 3 of the contest with over 5,000 contestants, tweet your wins to @Awesemo HOF. You'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. And of course, you can check out some of the most winning lineups we've had recently here. Smoke Jones taking down first place over there in an NBA contest, taking down $1,000. Scott also taking down first place there. He winning $300 in the NBA contest over there. Also, you had T.O. taking down first place NBA, win over $13,000. Kudos to you there, what you were able to do there. Also, Terry taking down first place in an NBA contest, winning $5,000. Also, a second place winner there, taking down $250. Nadu, appreciate seeing all those screenshots there. We want to see some UFC screenshots here when we get after UFC 272 is in the books. Of course, be sure to be rock that Awesemo avatar. If you don't have that Awesemo avatar, just go to awesemo.com/avatar. You can download that avatar today. And it's always one of those things when I'm in these cash slams, I always look, see how many Awesemo avatars are in here. Let me see who I'm going up against. So that's definitely something to check out here. 3 more fights to break down before we get out of here for the NHL strategy show. We got Tim Elliott versus Tiger 9,000, 7,200 for Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott, wild man. I mean, wild man, but man, if you roster Tim Elliott, you're scared this fight hits the 3rd round because you just don't know if he's going to have that tank there in the 3rd round.
Yeah, and I do think that there is value on Tim Elliott's side just because Tagir Ulanbekov is, I don't think that he's the most talented. I think that he has some upside, but I think it's relatively capped. I think that he's strong in the clinch department and steps around his opponent's legs nice and gets a lot of upper body trips and throws. A guy in Tim Elliott is just so wiry and awkward, given his nickname and just how he fights in general, that he could be a nightmare for a lot of fighters. And it's tough to get into a rhythm when a guy is just so sporadic and like a little Tasmanian devil. And that's what you're dealing with Tim Elliott. So there's value to be had here at 7,200 in Tim Elliott. I cannot sit there and back him necessarily from like a straight up situation, just because I think that Tim's best days are behind him. I understand that he's working extensively with, James Krause, Glory MMA and all that. And he has seemed to settle down a little bit in his past 3 fights, I would say. And Ryan Benoit, Jordan Espinoza, and Mateusz Nicolau, 3 fights that he didn't get finished in. And, early on throughout his career, he's shown, to wilt under the pressure at times, especially in the submission, defense department. And Tagir Ulanbekov could capitalize on a situation like that. He was pretty close to submitting Nascimento in the 1st round, I believe it was. And, I'm pretty sure Nascimento took that on relatively short notice. But regardless, Ulanbekov is a guy that his inactivity could lead to him losing some fights. And Tim Elliott's all about activity and all about volume and just, sometimes volume wins out and, the perfect shots don't always land for the other fighter. And this is a fight where I'll probably get to a ton of Tim Elliott. I should take those words back. Not a ton, a decent amount of Tim Elliott, because I do think that Tagir Ulanbekov, while he should win, he's going to lose within the UFC just because of being a little too lackadaisical at times.
Next up, we got a matchup that came together here, short notice. Devontae Smith taking on Klein 7,700, 8,500 for Devontae Smith. I will tell you, because I was just going to look over Prize Picks. Yeah, the fight time on Devontae Smith is 8.5. That's another underplay, by the way.
Yeah, that's an under for me. I mean, this is a fight to me, Jason, where I'm like, it's kind of a head scratcher, right? Because Devontae Smith was like largely considered a prospect within the sport because he's just an exceptional striker and finisher, and he's aggressive and comes from a very, very strong camp. And, you know, you have Ludovit Klein breaking into the UFC in spectacular fashion with that amazing head kick and combination flurry against Shane Young, and then to lose back-to-back fights against Trezano and Landwehr. Both of these guys, I just want to see how they rebound, right? Like, because Devontae Smith was just knocked out against Jamie Mullarkey. And I think that's less about Devontae Smith and more about how good Jamie Mullarkey is. He's pretty sneaky for the division. I'm going to be a little cautious with this one. This is a fantasy cruncher, make a group type of situation where I might add this fight to a GPP, group and say that I want to get to at least one of these guys because they're both, finishers. And Klein's an exceptional striker, but I worry about him gassing out. I worry about Devontae Smith gassing out. Klein all of a sudden starting to wrestle a little bit more. I really want to favor Devontae Smith just for, the consistency at 155 pounds, where Ludovit Klein, bumping up a weight class and trying to get back to 155 pounds, where he kind of had some regional success, inconsistent success, I should say, like predominantly a 45er, but has fought at 55 in the past. Devontae Smith, 8,500. I'm just going to hope that he rebounds here. And man, what a tricky fight. I think this might be the trickiest fight on the card. It's tough to kind of gauge.
First fight's also, I think, in that same book of Dustin Jacoby and Michal Oleksiejczuk. 8,600 for Jacoby, 7,600 for Oleksiejczuk. Leg kicks could be ultimately the key to victory here for Dustin Jacoby. But the one thing he said to me when I talked to him about 2 weeks ago, actually it was a little longer than that. He said, the one thing I have to be concerned about is the power that Oleksiejczuk has in his hands.
100%. And Oleksiejczuk's going to be an underdog I'm going to get some exposure to, just because Jacoby's been rocked and dropped numerous times despite his extreme kickboxing acumen. And he's the more skilled fighter in this situation. He has more varied attacks, but sometimes aggressiveness wins out. So 7,600 for Oleksiejczuk. I'm going to get more or even with the field, just because he does have some high finish upside and he hits like a truck.
Of course, it scares the hell. That fight scares the hell out of me to go there. Let's give our straight up DFS picks here. Main event, Colby Covington.
DFS or non-DFS?
Straight up.
I'll go Covington. I hate it. I want Masvidal so bad. Non-DFS. I'm saying I hope Masvidal wins.
Yeah. Your heart wants Masvidal.
100%. So my heart is Masvidal. My brain is Covington. But I think it's closer than what people are expecting.
I'll go RDA in the co-main event.
RDA.
I'll go Mitchell over Barboza.
Mitchell.
Give me Kevin Holland.
Spivak. Turner.
Rodriguez. Nikolai.
Yep. Negamariano.
Agapova.
Moroz.
Umar. Tagir.
I hate that too.
I know. Devontae.
Jacoby. Mikel.
I might also be.
I have a
good relationship with Dustin, so
I love Dustin
as well.
I just worry about him.
Yeah. Let's get to Sam's here. And then, of course, go next is the NHL strategy show. Top two cash. For me, I will say for cash, it is RDA and Umar.
RDA and Umar is no brainer. I absolutely love that.
Top two GPPs.
It's got to be Covington, even though I still say RDA though too. The price is just broken.
It's broke. I mean, but it's once again, it's throughout this card. It's like, man, I can look at certain fighters and say, man, I just think the ceiling is so high from Bryce Mitchell, one of those guys. But there's also a lot of volatility in that. Underdogs / champions for me. Underdogs that I'm really looking at. Edson Barboza, if he can keep it on the feet. I think Jamie Mullarkey is a sneaky underdog because of the takedown upside.
I'll give you the Jamie one. I'm gonna go Nego Mariano and also Marina Moroz.
Favorite inside the distance. It's an easy pick for me. Speedback Hardy.
Okay. I think that Nurmagomedov.
In terms of upsets and or fades, a fight that in GPPs I don't think I'll have a ton of will be Jan Janan and Rodriguez, because I think it goes 15 minutes, and the especially on the Rodriguez side, the lack of upside at 9,300.
Fair point. I would agree.
Now, Maria Rodriguez could be a leverage play, though, if you think she can go out there and get a stoppage.
100%. And it goes to show you, man, sometimes that ownership is just the way to view some fights.
And Sam sets the over number 8.5. We got 13 fights. I don't think that's a bad number, but I will go under.
Yeah, I agree. I'll say under. Pretty solid line, though, Sam.
Yeah, of course. We'll be back here on Saturday for Live Before Lock, 4 p.m. each time. Coming up next is the NHL strategy shows. Guys will get you ready for tonight's NHL slate. So that's going to do us. We will talk to you on Saturday for Live Before Lock. Have a good day, everybody.